Good afternoon. Today is February 1st, 2016, and this is the Glendale Water and Power Commission. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
President Hale.
Present.
Commissioner Camarga.
Present.
Commissioner Avanesian.
Here.
Commissioner Chan. Commissioner Lal.
Here.
Okay, if we could go to item 2, please.
2A is approval of the December 7, 2015 meeting minutes.
Members, at this time, it would be appropriate to make any amendments to the minutes if there are any. I was not present for the meeting, so I don't have any, or could I make them if I did? So any suggestions?
I have none. No, I don't have any.
No, I have none.
Okay, seeing no amendments, that will be approved without objection.
3 is GWP Commission staff comments.
Are there any comments from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, any comments from GWP staff?
No comments.
Okay. That brings us to item 4A, please.
4A is conservation drought update. Michael DeGhetto.
Mr. DeGhetto?
President Hale, members of the commission, I'm going to give a drought update, and we didn't meet in December, so this is a little bit. It's got 2 months.
Well, we didn't meet in January. I believe we did meet in December.
So we met in December and not January. Okay. And I thought I'd go ahead and start again with where our water comes from. And we're a member agency of Metropolitan Water District, and we get water both from the State Water Project, which includes snow up in the northern Sierras, and we get water from the Colorado River Aqueduct, which includes, again, snow in the Colorado River Basin. And we also have local supplies. Metropolitan Water District's the retail agency and the wholesaler in the area. And Glendale is one of 26 member agencies. And then we also have local supplies. So 70% of our water roughly comes from MWD and 30% from groundwater. And that's limited by the basin judgment in the San Fernando Basin. And we can extract between 4,000 and 5,000 acre feet a year. The Verdugo Basin, which again is limited in the judgment to 3,800 acre feet per year. And we've been producing less than that because of groundwater levels within that Verdugo Basin itself, affecting how much water we can pump out of our wells. And then about 2,000 acre feet makes up our recycled water.
Question for you on the recycled water.
Yes.
Mr. DeGhetto, so is that 2,000 acre feet per year, is that total current output? Or I guess let me ask a question differently. What is the total capacity for production of recycled water, and where are we now?
The capacity from the LA Glendale Water Reclamation Plant that Glendale is entitled to is approximately between 6,000 and 8,000 acre feet, and that 2,000 is what we deliver. That's the demand on our recycled water system.
And we deliver that within the city, within the bounds of Glendale?
Yeah, within the city of Glendale.
Okay. And at some point, I'd be interested to know what we might be able to do in order to better utilize the other, 4,000 to 5,000 acre feet of water.
And I think in a future meeting I could bring back the recycled water project update that I gave. It was earlier last year, probably in March, I want to say. And I can make an update to that if that would be.
Okay, I appreciate that. So maybe we cover that at forecast?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So the current condition on those supplies I spoke about the State Water Project in the Colorado River Basin. So the northern Sierra snowpack's about 130% of normal for this time of year, which is a lot better than the last few years. I want to say last year it was almost 0%. It was very low. And that's important to think about it. So we're 130% of normal, but that still hasn't made up for how far below normal we've been in the last few years. And part of that is, or a good benefit, the State Water Project allocation's been increased from 10% of normal deliveries to 15%. So there's a little bit extra water that Metropolitan can get and put into storage to help refill some of their storage. And the Colorado River Basin snowpack's about 105% of normal levels for this time of year, which again is higher than last year. And then just locally, the precipitation we've been getting, we predict to help with the water levels in the Verdugo Basin. So that should help pumping in 2016.
Could I ask a quick question on that slide? State water project allocation has been increased from 10% to 15%, meaning that we are still at 85% below our normal allocation.
Yes.
So previously we were at 90% below, now we're at 85%
Yes.
below. Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's an important point.
A couple of other follow-ups, if I may.
Yes.
So can you explain on the snowpack issue? So there's snowpack, but then there's also a factor, I think, related to the speed with which the snowpack melts.
Yes.
That is to say, my cursory understanding is that a warmer spring that results in a faster melting of that snowpack is less productive in terms of being able to retain water. But can you speak to that?
It can be less productive. So part of the snowpack, and when I say the 130%, part of that's water content. So the state measures the water content of the snow as well. If things warm up faster, there could be like faster runoff. But the situation right now, and I don't know if everyone remembers the pictures I had from last year, the storage reservoirs are very low. So even in this case, if there was more runoff, there's plenty of storage capacity to help refill that. So that issue of excess water, say, running out to the ocean would be less dramatic at this point. I think that in previous years, that was a bigger issue when, say, there were several wet years in a row. Definitely it was harder to capture that water because the reservoirs were full. But the way it is right now, any extra snowpack that we get is going to help replenish the reservoirs. And that's, in some previous presentations I showed, we're under an allocation from MWD, all the member agencies are. And what we've been, to a large extent, living off of is storage. And that's why the allocation hasn't been more dramatic, say a 90% cutback. Mm-hmm. Like the State Water Project, we've only been at a 15% cutback from MET. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, that does address my question. Thank you. One more question for you, if I may, and that's related to the precipitation, I guess, at the lower elevation. So rain that we receive here in Glendale and the foothills around
Yes.
Glendale. So are there efforts in place either at the state level or here within Glendale in order to capture some of the runoff? I see that, you're talking about in the Verdugo Basin, I assume that there's an amount of precipitation that percolates down into the aquifers, but are there efforts in place in order to capture some of the water that runs off to the ocean?
There are. So in the other basin that we pump from is the San Fernando Basin, and LA Department of Water and Power and LA County Flood Control District are doing some improvements at some of the dams there to help retain more of that runoff and have it percolate and impound the water a little bit more to let it soak in. The other thing in Verdugo Basin, there's like flood control channel within that, and there's some spreading areas in there, but because the storms are so intense in such a short duration, like the main concern for flood control is flood control and making sure that water gets out. The other projects that help with that are like the Green Street projects that Public Works is doing, as well as what they call low impact developments. And that would be where you do a development and you try and retain stormwater within the site and have it percolate in. And that's really, I guess, the things that would help return the surface to see how it was before it was so developed. It helps that water soak in and percolate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, thank you.
So to cover the conservation, so as I reported about November, I think at that time I was even doing a projection. I didn't have the final numbers, but we came out at 16.4% conservation. And then December, we were at 15.9%. And as I've been discussing, our percentages were higher in the summer months because usage is higher in the summer months. So when we go to that 2-day-a-week watering, we can get some bigger impacts. And then just normally, November and December are lower usage months, so it's harder to get that big of a percentage of a cutback. But our cumulative amount, which is the thing that the state has us looking at, we're still at 22.8% as of the end of December, and our target's 20% for Glendale. And then the numbers that we have based on sales, which are different and a little bit ahead of our production numbers, is that we're actually having a very good amount of conservation in January. That's partly due to January of 2013 being warm. So I think our usage was higher in January of 2013 than would normally happen, as well as it's been very cold and rainy. So customers haven't been watering even on the 2 days a week. So some updates on the state actions. And I spoke about this before. The governor extended his executive order through October of 2016. Now the state water board's proposing to extend the compliance period end date, and it had been February. Now they're proposing to extend it to October. So then it would be a period of June 15 through October 16 that we have to meet that 20% cutback. They're also proposing some modifications like the evapotranspiration for the local area. And of course, we're looking at all that information to see if there's any credits that we could apply for, which would mean reducing it from 20 to something less than 20.
What is evapotranspiration?
That has to do with plants and soil in a certain area and how the water evaporates out, with the point of having this as part of the conservation standard to give credit to more arid areas that might need to use more water than areas that are wetter. And that evapotranspiration is something, if you have one of those smart irrigation controllers, it monitors that and determines when to turn on your sprinklers and things like that. So it's And then just to wrap up, so we're in phase 3, which is 2 days a week, Tuesday and Saturday, no more than 10 minutes at each station. And of course, the water waste policy is always in effect. And then our enforcement in December, there were 79 first warnings, 12 second warnings, 11 third warnings. Our enforcement staff issued notices, 50 notices that might lead to a citation, and we issued 13 citations in December. Had no leak letters mailed, 21 calls to customers, 29 field visits regarding the leaks, and then just the automatic leak alert emails, 435, which the AMI system generates and sends out. And then we still have a lot of good information on our website about the water-wise gardening and what kind of plants are drought-tolerant, good plants to plant. And then I think MWD's actually doesn't have any money available for rebates at this time, but you can still go on and look at that. And during their budgeting process, they're probably going to allocate a little bit more money to some of those appliance and those other sorts of rebates, and possibly turf as well. But they're working on their budgeting process right now. And then that's all I've got.
So, Mr. DeGhetto, I wonder if you could put into a context a little bit some of what we've seen here, because we have snowpack reaching well above normal, well, a little bit above normal levels, but we still have our conservation targets. Our allocation from the State Water Project has only increased by 5%. So what message should a ratepayer, water ratepayer in Glendale take from these kinds of disparate kind of messages? We're continuing the conservation orders, but snowpack as well, getting back to normal levels.
President Hale, I would think as a customer, just a resident of California, the thing to keep in mind really are those pictures of the governor standing there with no snow. That was almost 2 or 3 years in a row. So even with better snowpack and better precipitation now, that extra water is really going to go back and replenish storage. So, what remains to kind of be seen is, will it bring storage levels back up to maximum levels? And really the investments that Metropolitan's done through our ratepayers and all the ratepayers that pay our bills is invested in storage and those sorts of flexibilities to be able to weather the dry years. So this 1 year of having a little bit above normal is going to help. But long term, it's really going to depend on if we have more normal years or if there's some sort of new normal that's that lower precipitation.
So, and if we backslide on conservation, then it's going to take that much longer to replenish all that storage and that many more years of this kind of weather to start replenishing all of those.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's just always important to conserve. It's really something to change habits. Like the example I gave is, whenever I leave a room, I turn off the lights. I mean, I learned that, I think, during the first oil crisis when I was a kid, but I think now that same mentality you need to have about your sprinklers. It's like, oh, it's raining, I better go turn it off. It's cooler, I could reduce the amount of time. And I think, I've seen, driving around the city, a lot of customers have changed from turf to other sorts of plant material, which is really the next phase of making conservation impacts on the overall water supply mix.
Any other questions or comments on this one? Okay, we'll go up to 4B, please.
Okay. 4B is Electrical Reliability Report, Varujan Avedian.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the Commission. My name is Varujan Avedian, the Principal Electrical Engineer with Water and Power. So I'm here to present to you our reliability report. I believe a few months ago, about 6-7 months ago, we did a similar presentation, but I'm here with a more comprehensive report. Basically, we are going to compare. I'm going to show you the comparison to our goals, as well as our comparison to other utilities. You've seen this chart before. Basically, this is our outage summary broken down by cause. And basically, we analyze every single outage that we have to determine what the actual cause is, whether it's preventable or not. For example, as you can see, mylar balloons are one major cause of outages that we have, about 18%. We had a question last time about the unknown category. Basically, I just want to explain that. What it is when we have an outage, we send the crews out to determine what the cause is. If they cannot find a cause, we consider it as unknown, which is going to be as a non-preventable outage. If we don't know the cause, we cannot prevent it. However, there are categories here that we consider as preventable. For example, cable and equipment failures, outages caused by trees, overloads, or misoperation, we consider them as preventable outages. The next slide basically shows the percentage of preventable outages compared to non-preventable outages. basically over 2/3 of our outages that we've had in the last 5 years have been non-preventable. And the goal for us here is we set a goal for ourselves to be less than 25 preventable outages per year. And we're doing well. And I don't have the number there, but on average, last 5 years, we had 17 preventable outages per year. And last year, we had 18. So we are within the goal that we've set for ourselves. Basically, there's nothing much we can do on the non-preventable outages, but there's a lot that we can do to prevent or to minimize the number of preventable outages. And we have a number of programs that we have that is helping us and it has helped us reduce our preventable outages. For example, we have the line clearance program. Basically, that is our program to trim the trees and keep them away from the power lines. We've had great success on trimming the trees in the public right-of-way. However, we had instances, difficulties trimming the trees in privately owned trees, and basically in the backyards. And sometimes it takes a lot of negotiations with the homeowner and explaining what the benefits are. And sometimes we have to balance the aesthetics with what the requirement clearance is. So there has been instances that we had to go out numerous times to trim the same tree because we can't trim as much as we want to or as much as we are required to. The next program we have, and we've had this for years, is the 4 to 12 kV conversion program. And basically, with that program, what's helping us as far as reliability goes with this program is when we rebuild the circuits, we increase the separation between the wires on overhead circuits. On a 4 kV circuit, the average distance is about between 12 to 18 inches between wires. When we go to 12 kV, the distance increases to 34 inches. That basically that increased separation reduces the risk of wires slapping together during a windy condition, or it reduces the chances of a tree limb getting stuck between or getting in contact between two wires. The next program we have is our System Protection Coordination Program. And with that, the goal here is to coordinate our protection devices to minimize the number of customers affected during an outage and not have a widespread feeder outage. And we can accomplish that by coordinating our fuses in the field as well as our relays in the substations. We also have a power pole replacement program. We've had this for years also. And basically, we have over 14,000 power poles in the city of Glendale. And we've categorized them as far as age, and we tackle them by age or by based on the inspection reports that we get, we replace them. And that has a big impact on our reliability as well. We have a cable replacement program also, underground cables. And we have areas with aging cables, which they're getting close to their maximum life limit or usable and desired life limit. Last year alone, we replaced over 2 miles of underground cables. And we're going to continue doing that. In the next 5 years, we're anticipating somewhere between 10 to 15 circuit miles of cable to be replaced. That, if you notice, let me go back to this chart, 11% of our outages had been due to cable failures and about 9% equipment failure. Just by doing the cable replacement and power pole replacement, we can reduce that 20% number.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
Over what period of time do you expect to be able to complete the underground cable replacement program?
We have about 500 to 600 circuit miles of cable, underground cable in the city. Right now, we're just replacing 2 miles a year. We're not making that much progress, but not all that cable is old. And I can get back to you sometime later about the actual numbers as far as what percentage is old and what our projection is, but I don't have that number with me right now.
Is it your goal to try to identify then the oldest cable and replace that prior to failure?
Absolutely.
Is that where you're headed?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Cables and the devices associated, correct.
And you have the data to tell you which cables are
correct. We
are
do.
aging.
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I can get back to you later at a later date with my next report. Probably I can get that report to you as well.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. And the last point is that as you guys know, we have a 5-year capital improvement program that we do and we revise that program and adjust that program on continuous basis based on the system conditions, new customers coming online, or the inspection reports and maintenance reports that we're getting back from the field. We adjust that program. Now let's look at the reliability indices. The first index is SAFE, which is the System Average Interruption Frequency Index. What that is the number of outages that a Glendale customer can experience within a year or within a 12-month period. And our goal is to have less than 1 outage per year. And as you can see, we're meeting our goal. To put this in perspective, and I think I said this before, this number just 10 years ago was 2. Basically, every Glendale customer used to experience 2 outages per year. Now we cut that in half in 10 years. And that's because of all the investments that we're making in the system and in infrastructure. That being said, SAFE is not an easy index to measure. If you, a slide back, I mentioned the 4 to 12 kV conversion program that we had. With that program, when we are converting the feeders, we're putting more customers on one feeder. That means if there's an interruption, we have more customers affected, and that has a big impact on our safety performance in the city.
And just to be clear, these are unplanned outages, correct? So
Unplanned outages, correct.
This is outages that are not related to neighborhood improvements that are being made on the grid or anything like that.
That is correct, yes.
Excuse me, in what voltage level we are talking about?
This is on a distribution level, basically 4 kV and 12 kV. Or if you have major impact, a major event that takes a transmission line out, meaning it takes a substation out, that can consider that too. It's going to result in loss of the 4 and 12 kV customers. This is the next slide that basically I didn't have before, and it puts in perspective as far as where we are throughout the industry. We participated in this study, in this reliability benchmarking study, which was sponsored by SCAPA, and it was done by PA Consulting. And as you can see, basically it shows, this is the chart of all the IOUs that participated. And in the middle, where you see 0.99, that's where we are. Basically, we're in the middle of the pack. The average for IOUs is 1.14 outage per year. We are doing better than the average. And again, we are meeting our goal here. And like I said, I just want to go back to the number of customers that we have on each feeder. We have certain feeders with over 4,000 customers on them compared to some of these utilities with about 400 to 600 customers. So 1 outage for us equivalents to 10 outages for them.
So excuse me, that 1 outage, how many houses are getting affected?
Again, we have feeders with over 4,000 customers on them, or 4,000 meters on them, I should say, or houses, depending on. So it depends which feeder we have an outage, and that it has a big impact on that, the number of customers impacted.
Okay.
The next chart is again comparing our safety to now POUs. Again, we are doing better than most POUs. Or the average for POUs is about 1.37 outage per year, and we are at 0.99.
That's very strong performance on both measures.
Yep.
So you're under on both the IOUs and the POUs.
Correct. The next index is System Average Interruption Duration Index, which is SAIDI, and that is the the duration of an outage. If an outage happens at system-wide scale that every customer can experience. Again, our goal is 40 minutes, and we're doing well. We're below our goal. And again, to put this in perspective, just 10 years ago, this number was over 2 hours, which is under 20 minutes, and we are less than 40 right now. Again, if you were impressed with the last slide, this is a better slide to show. And our average outage is about 37 and basically a little bit less than 38 minutes. The IOU average is over 126 minutes. So we are one of the best utilities in the nation compared to IOUs, as well as next slide compared to POUs as well. The POU average is almost 140 minutes. We are less than 38.
Mr. Avedian, do you have an image of, oftentimes we here will compare ourselves to other utilities in our local area. I know this is a national,
Correct.
I understand this is a national study. Do you know where some of those that are in our, I don't know if you call them a competitive set, but the Burbanks and Pasadenas of
Right.
the world on the POU side, do you know where they fall on this type of band?
As far as just off of the memory, I had that slide in my last presentation, and we're doing. I don't want to guess right now, but we're doing compared to them, we're doing okay. I mean,
Okay.
some of them much better than, for example, compared to LADWP, we're doing much better.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these indices, Burbank is doing better than us because they have smaller customers, like 400
Right.
customers on a feeder, for example. But I can get back to you with that also.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I got to imagine that some of this is driven by regional issues, climate issues, in,
Right.
areas that have tornadoes may have more regular storms that have an impact across their service area, whereas we have a sort of unique geography here in Southern
Correct.
California. So I would appreciate that.
Yep.
Some of this could even involve travel time to get the crew out to whatever incident caused it. I mean,
Right.
that
And that, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is a testament to the hard work of our crews, that every time we have an outage, they get to the outage location as soon as possible and restore the outage. And they're doing a great job on that. The next index is CAIDI, which is the Customer Average Interruption Duration Index. This is a more granular look at the outage performance. What that means is this looks at the actual customer that had an outage and the restoration time for the customers who had an outage. And again, our goal is 40 minutes or less, and we're meeting our goal. In comparing to IOUs, we're doing even better. We're at 38 minutes, they're over 110. And compared to POUs, again, we are doing well as well. In summary, basically, we are performing very well as far as reliability is concerned. We've been recognized by APPA as a reliable public power provider. We continue to invest in our infrastructure that has a big impact on our reliability, and we have a 5-year plan that we adjust constantly, and we analyze every feeder, which helps us to prevent the preventable outages from happening again, or similar outages from happening again. And again, this is due to our dedicated employees responding to outages and restoring outages in a timely manner.
Yeah, I'd just like to comment. So this is outstanding performance. So clearly, the duration and frequency of the outages is can be tracked by real black and white data, and clearly the data shows that the team here in Glendale is doing outstanding work. So I think you should be commended for that, and appreciate you providing the benchmark data. I think that provides an important perspective in terms of the performance here as compared to the investor-owned and other utilities across the country. I do have a follow-up question for you with respect to the preventable outages. So there you mentioned that our goal is less 20. Is it 25 or less?
25.
25
yes,
or
outages.
less per year.
Correct.
And we've been performing at about the 17 level.
Yes.
So there, do you know, is that benchmarkable as well? That is to say, what do other utilities use? Do we use data from other utilities in order to inform that goal, or is this sort of just based on prior performance and looking at incremental improvements to our own?
I don't know that right now to answer. I'll have to get back to you with that. So I can get back to you with that in the next meeting.
I was wondering, there is this technique reliability-centered maintenance. Have you been looking into that?
What do you mean by that?
This is a program that you do your maintenance based on reliability.
Well, and we do that. Basically, depending on which feeders are performing well or not, we focus our inspection and maintenance to that feeder, for example. If some of the, for example, the cable replacement programs that we have, it's directly result of the reliability in that feeder. For example, we have feeders, or we've had feeders that were not performing well due to cable failures. So we focused our attention to those feeders and replaced those cables. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
I have a question. I know Commissioner Camargo requested a benchmarking with utilities that are nearby. Looking at this, I only see 2014 data. So my request would be, like next time we look at this, can you include maybe 3 years worth of data?
Sure, I can.
So we know where we're trending.
We started this benchmarking with that PA Consulting vet last year, so I can go as far back as last year. But as far as local entities, I can provide you the last 30 years.
Sure, yeah, that, and also I'd like to see Glendale Water and Power's performance for the last 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
You know, if we have the data.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Does your department engage in any public outreach or education regarding the preventable outages? Obviously, it's extremely difficult to control squirrels, but balloons at 18% of the outages that are preventable are being caused by balloons. Are we putting signs up in Vons when people buy balloons saying "Be careful and dispose of this properly to avoid a power outage"? I mean, what are the efforts that are being made? To
I
address
believe
those?
we've done that before, as far as especially balloons with the pamphlets that we send out. We've reached out, and I'm sure I can get back to you with that in details because I'm not directly involved with that aspect of it.
Commissioner Lal, we have pamphlets and we do outreach to our customers. And then even like at Utility Day, we have an on-site demonstration where the linemen have an energized set of feeders and they short them out with a balloon. And I don't know if you've been at Utility Day, but it brings kids, basically groups of kids, and they go around to each station. And then that's one of actually the biggest station with the biggest sparks. And they short it out and then restore it. So we do outreach on that.
What's the associated cost of an outage like that? Do you have a cost per
We
outage?
do. I don't have it with me, but we do have it. It's an estimation. We can on every outage we can actually go and see how many hours did we spend on it and what the lost revenue was. We can actually get it for every outage. But we've done studies that shows what the cost association is.
That might be very compelling information to share.
Sure.
Thank you.
So it sounds like we got requests for a couple of updates to some of the slides here. Do you think you could get those back to us by next month's meeting?
Sure.
Great. I think we'll cover that for agenda forecast. Any other questions, members? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to the next item.
5 is oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Commission may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The general manager may refer to the matter to appropriate staff for investigation and report.
I don't have any cards at the desk. Madam Clerk, do you have any? Seeing no cards, comment is now closed.
And 6 is agenda forecast.
So, members, I would actually like to get the electric system reliability report updates at our next meeting if there's an appetite for it.
Yes.
Agreed.
Seeing no objection, let's go ahead and add that one. I believe Mr. Camargo requested a recycled water update, so I'd like to go ahead and add that as well, if there's no objection.
Would you like that
At the March meeting, yeah. Okay. Unless you see any reason.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see the maintenance program.
For water?
No, for electricity. What is, how it looks like, the maintenance program.
So I think you're thinking in terms of miles of cable replaced each year, poles replaced, that sort of thing, or?
Well, generally, whatever maintenance you do, you should have a main program, and that program it is regularly, experienced, and I want to see what is the basis of that. Because I was talking about reliability-centered maintenance, sure, which is, for sure it is in atomic power stations, they use that.
Sure.
And this is called RCM. I want to know if it's possible to implement that or not.
Okay.
President Hale, would April, 2 months, or?
Without kind of guessing or telegraphing what staff is going to be capable of putting together, I think April is probably the best target for that meeting, just to give them a little bit of time to put a presentation on that together. Right. Commissioner Avanesian, is that okay with you?
Yeah.
What's the PBC update? What is that? In April?
Public benefits charge? Okay. Any other amendments to our agenda forecast? Okay. Seeing none, I think we'll go ahead and lock that in. So we'll add recycled water update and another update from the electric reliability program on the March meeting, and then a presentation on our power maintenance activities on the April meeting.
My apologies. I'm sorry. One thing I'm noticing now is, so with the budget update, we have that slotted for May. Mm-hmm. But I'm recalling, I thought at times we addressed that as early as April. Is that not the case?
I would suggest we do it in April, if only so that we can provide a little bit of guidance to staff as to what we think ought to be included in the presentation to council and the budget that gets included to council. Mr. DeGhetto, do you know about when the budget presentation is going to be made to the full council for consideration?
I think it is in May, and I think that's why we put it in that slot.
Well, why don't we actually move it up to April for now, and then when we get back here for our March meeting and we can have some time to consult with Mr. Zern, we can bump it back down if that's appropriate.
Okay.
How often do we receive an update on our mix of electricity in terms of meeting renewable energy goals?
So we have done an RPS update. I think we did one back in November, if memory serves.
The renewable portfolio standard?
Yeah.
Right. Is that something that we do twice a year? Is it annually? Is it?
We've typically scheduled it quarterly,
okay.
I believe. So I think we're probably going to be due for one in probably next month or the month after.
Okay.
Or we've done it biannually, all exactly. But if you're interested, and if the power system doesn't think it's too taxing to put that on the docket, we should probably put something in
March
on April. March or April, yeah. Is there anyone from power system staff who can provide any guidance on that? Or
I think April sounds like a good.
April? Okay.
RPS. Okay.
And then, Commissioner Camargo, good.
Yeah, so I guess I'm also now reflecting on, we've had conversations about the artificial turf replacement update, and I seem to recall that we had that on an agenda in the October or November timeframe, and it got bumped. So it continues to roll out further into the future. I'm just not aware of what's driving that timing.
So we originally were planning to hear that a little bit sooner, but we were waiting for the city's planning staff and the community development department, I believe, to work on a policy on that. Have they come to a decision on what the sort of neighborhood or aesthetic issues?
President Hill, they haven't yet. Council asked them to do more study, and that's what they're working on. And I spoke with them, and that's why we moved it to the May timeframe.
Okay. Is there any jeopardy that we're in as a result of the state legislation? Because I believe that we have to sort of clear the hurdles to do artificial turf.
No, we're not.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so we'll keep that in May then.
Okay.
So it would go to City Council after it comes to us? Or what would the order be?
Yeah.
It's not a GWP item,
Right.
so it wouldn't necessarily come to the GWP commission before going to council.
So it's informational, basically
Yes,
letting us
yes.
know what staff is reporting.
Yeah, because it's related to the landscaping ordinance.
Okay.
And then, Madam Clerk, I'd actually ask you to consult with Mr. Zern on these July and September meetings so that we can try and pick some special dates to have hold meetings those months in lieu of the normally scheduled meetings. Any other changes? Okay.
Okay. Adjournment.
I think that's it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Without objection, we are adjourned.